Now, welcome back. With his first year in office drawing to a close, the US president has been talking up his economic record in typical Trump style.
Economic miracle. Created more than 2 million jobs.
Unemployment is at a 17-year low.
The stock market is at an all-time high.
Fantastic for the economy.
Our economy has already surged to 3% growth. Unemployment is at a 17-year low.
Liberated the American economy.
Our economy is doing fantastically well.
But one man who does not share President Trump's optimism is former U.S. Congressman Ron Paul, and he joins us live now from Texas. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. So what do you make of Trump's record? Why, in your view, is it not perhaps as positive as the figures seem to suggest? His supporters would say the stock market's going up, jobs are being created. Is that not worthy of praise?
Well, if we're all true, there's partial truth there. Things are a little bit better. If you're in the stock market and a wealthy person, you're doing quite well. But what we're forgetting here when we listen to this rhetoric of all this optimism is that there's a large segment of our population that's having a difficult time. We have two types of society here, the lower 50% and the top 10 or 15%. And the economy is doing well for the wealthy, but not for the poor. And where there is prosperity and more jobs, it depends on debt. Yes, an individual can feel very good if they have a line of credit to the bank, but eventually that line of credit runs out. We, in this country, benefit because we have the reserve currency of the world. We can run up a lot of debt, and we can spend a lot of money. And even with that, we've had a great deal of difficulty in these last 8 years trying to get out of the recession. And I quite frankly don't believe we're really out of that recession, but believe me, we have a lot more debt. It's self-limiting, and I think before this year is out, the amount of debt that we have is going to be a great burden because interest rates are creeping up. And all of a sudden, that's going to make our budgetary problems very difficult to handle.
You went further than that in an interview recently, saying that the system is coming apart, very direct language. What did you actually mean by that? Because there are those who would disagree with you, saying that the impending economic meltdown is always coming, but the system just keeps going on, does it not?
Yes, that is true. In Austrian economics, which I follow, which is quite a bit different from Keynesian economics or socialist economics, it teaches that you can see the direction of an economy and predict, bubbles, but you can't predict timing. We do know that if you have a central bank and they have credibility and that they can print money and seem to stimulate things, we know that there's a bubble coming. And I see everything we do as a big bubble. And all those QEs that we have dealt with in these last 8 years have just created a huge bubble, and everything is in excess, whether it's our military budget, our overseas engagements, whether it's the welfare state, and that bubble will come to an end. But Austrian economics say you may know the direction of the country, but you don't know whether it's going to be tomorrow or next year. There will be some event that will pop up, and the fragility of the economy will all of a sudden become apparent, and there'll be a rush to the exits, and this has to be reversed. We will have to pay for our extravagance.
That type of breakup, as you say, would be like what the Soviet Union experienced. What kind of comparison did you make and why?
Well, the way I see this is in economic terms, and my understanding is that it wasn't that our military buildup in the United States that brought the Soviet system down. What happened was the Soviets were working with a system that we as freedom people and free markets saw it as totally unviable. Socialism and fascism and communism, it's not viable, and eventually, it can be held together with force, but eventually it ends. And Keynesianism and deficit financing and Federal Reserves and welfareism and the militarism, it's not viable. So I say it's coming to an end. And although I have said we're going to have a sudden cataclysmic end, which is sort of what happened to the Soviet system, it's not going to be identical. And I pointed out that it was different. There was sort of a secession movement, and some of those countries left the Soviet system. And our states aren't probably going to break up, but I do sincerely believe that we will no longer be able to afford our empire around the world. So our our empire that we have out there, although we don't claim ownership to it, it's a lot of money and a lot of influence, and we threaten with weapons and we use sanctions to hold our empire together. I think that's coming to an end.
So can the economy be turned around, do you think, or is it just going to come to a dire end, as you say?
Well, I always wished that you could work through the system, and that's why I went into Congress, but I never had an illusion to think, oh, they're going to listen to me and I'll get some help there, and we will be smart, and we will quit printing the money and balance the budget and bring our troops home. No, I never expected that. It's not going to happen. No, I think the turnaround will come, and I'm optimistic on the long run because there are more people like myself who are trying to promote the ideas of liberty and sound economic policy. So, no, I think the big crash will come first, and then it'll be up for grabs. I do think that we who believe in less government and the free market system, we have a crack at it, and we definitely will have to have monetary reform because it's very precarious right now, and that's why you see the dollar getting weaker, and other countries that are talking about an alternative currency. That is not easy to do, but there's talk of that, and I think eventually it will come about because I think the dollar will fail.
Thank you very much for your time and thoughts this hour. Always good to have you in the programme. Ron Paul, former US Congressman and presidential candidate in 2 elections. Thank you very much.